Good News, September 26, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. I met with Senior Chief Marshall Haywood for several hours after arrival last night. She gave me a preliminary run-down and progress report on the organizational development and status. They have come a long way in terms of establishing standards, training, departments, badges, paperwork, and all the rest of it. It is clear that she and the other marshals involved have put in a tremendous amount of thought and work into building a modern and well-documented peacekeeping force we can all be proud of. In the course of the discussions, Senior Chief Haywood demonstrated an unusually good knowledge of how law works now versus the way public law is supposed to operate, the underlying reasons that our peacekeeping forces are being lied to and misdirected, and what we can all do to change that and make our country and communities safer places to be. She made me aware of a couple new programs akin to Neighborhood Watch and relationship building that has been going on, in which the marshals are taking the lead to educate and support law enforcement officers about public law and all the many topics that relate to public duty. Education of local law enforcement and agency personnel remains a high priority going forward, and the Continental Marshals Service is well on its way organizationally to becoming an integral and vital, and prior to this, missing link in the total law enforcement community nationwide. Our marshals are taking the high road and keeping their focus exactly where I and everyone else reading this needs it to be, protecting private persons and property and enforcing the constitutional guarantees we are all heir to. I couldn't be more pleased with the dedication, understanding, focus, and just plain hard work of these unpaid volunteers. It is very humbling to consider the sacrifices each and every one of these Americans are making. For those who don't know, the Marshals Service was recommissioned in 2015 as a result of being defunded by the corporate municipal Congress. Bruce Doucette was given the task of organizing the Marshals. He admitted that the task was too much on top of everything else and nominated Tressa Haywood about a year later. He never gave her copies of the foundation documents, and there were other issues with the transfer of command that have now either been ironed out or soon will be, now that I have been made aware of them. I also want to assure people who have heard ugly rumors to the effect that Senior Chief Marshall Haywood had anything to do with the arrest and conviction of the Colorado 9 that this gossip is totally unfounded. Bruce and the others got in trouble because they were confused and would not listen to me nor to Chief Haywood. They crossed over the jurisdictional lines, which predictably has the same result as turning the wrong way on a one-way street. Anyone who is interested in what happened can read the at-the-time description and account of it that I provided everyone. I believe it's Article 485 on my website. Both Chief Haywood and myself have been blamed for what happened to the Colorado 9. The fact is that we both did all that we could short of standing on our heads in a public restroom to keep these good men on track. They thought they knew better the whole time that Chief Haywood and I were pointing at the street signs. And, I will note, they still think they know better even now, when they are in prison. They still don't grasp the fact that they transgressed into a foreign jurisdiction. I carefully explained it all again and wrote to each one of them and asked them to sign paperwork acknowledging the facts and that they made a simple mistake and should receive a presidential pardon. I told them to stop filing any motions with any courts and to handle everything from then on as a private matter. President Trump could have, and I believe, would have, just pardoned them, if they could have demonstrated their newfound grasp of how all this works and promised not to cross jurisdictions again. But once again, they ignored my instructions, kept filing motions into foreign courts, and thereby provided evidence that no, they were still confused and therefore still likely to commit similar offenses again. In all of this, these men have been their own enemies, and their refusal to listen is what has gotten them into unnecessary trouble, not failure of any duty that I or Chief Haywood had to warn them or assist them. So we have struggled on without their assistance, and the effort to get the Colorado Assembly organized was made harder by this epic loss, but on the other hand, the leadership that remains is leadership that learns and listens and which can succeed in navigating the maze of rights and responsibilities. At the end of the day, we are called to do our public duty, in peace, and in honor. The Continental Marshals are doing more than their fair share.